Scientist now, Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue our discussion on the Pathfinder role-playing game system. Well, we last left off, we moved into the last section of the book. Conditions. Let's continue with conditions. Confusion. Confusion is when your character loses a connection to reality, begins to not understand what's going on. Things become jumbled in their mind. You no longer can tell friend from foe, foe from friend. Everything is an enemy to you when you are confused. Everything is something for you to fight against. Now, it is important to note that should you want to try to cast a spell to help out your confused friend, you're going to have to make a melee touch attack. They're going to try to resist you. And a confused person, as soon as they take damage from something, the last thing they took damage from is the target of their aggression, what they want to attack against. And they'll keep going until that thing is either disabled and down or dead. And they'll keep over until that target is dead or out of sight. Now, each turn you will roll a percentile and check a chart to see what you do. If one of these actions you can't do it, you babble incoherently, you're just like blah, 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 blah. It's also important to note that you don't get any special advantage against a confused person. You're fighting them just as normal as if they were not confused. No special effects to it. It's also important to note that they will not take an attack of opportunity unless you've attacked them before. Effectively, once you've triggered that they are one of the people they can attack, that's when they get the attack of opportunity from. And you have to remember, they will attack the last person until that one's dead or out of sight, and then move on to the one that was before that one. Now, cowering. You are filled with so much fear, you cannot move. You're cowering in fear. You just sit there, you can take no actions. You get -2 to your AC, and you lose any dex bonus to AC. So you're just sitting there, not trying to defend yourself, trying to keep away from them. Dazed as your mind is muddled and messed up. When you're dazed, you lose your turn, you lose your actions. It's as simple as that. Traditionally, most dazed things last a turn before you recover your mind, but they don't give any other special bonuses. You just lose what you were going to do. Now, dazzled is like a bright light's hitting you in the face and you're like, oh god, I can't quite see as well as I used to. You're not blinded, but you're like messed up in your vision. You get -1 to attack during this time that you're dazzled, and you have -1 on any sight-based perception checks. Not talking about an important one. Dead! You are dead when your hit points reach negatives equal to your constitution score. That's simple as that. You can also die from your constitution reaching 0, or from some kind of effect that causes you to die instantaneously. I'll kill you. Your soul leaves your body. Your body is now a pile of meat that's beginning to rot, beginning to decay, beginning to return to the earth, so to say, unless you use magic or some other reason to preserve it. Now, this doesn't mean you can't do something about this. Healing naturally or cure spells, any kind of cure magic, don't do anything to heal hit points. But there is specific magic which will bring back the dead, put your soul back into your body. Now, the result of this will have you either returning to your full original health, or perhaps to a lesser state as defined by the spell proper. But any results of being dead, not the spirit part, the body part, you don't get anything. Your body doesn't have rigor mortis, rotting, anything like that. That gets solved, that gets brushed away. So whatever your body went through while you were dead, you don't have any effects of that. Deafened is, you can't hear. That's it. You can't hear anything. You get -4 to your initiative. You automatically fail any perception checks based on hearings. If you're having opposed perception checks, you get -4 to those. And if you have some kind of arcane spell that would have spell failure, you have an extra 20% spell failure. Now, if you are deaf for longer periods of time, similar to with blindness, you can eventually overcome some of these penalties and learn to live without them. It's the same thing that eventually you adapt to it. Now, disabled is either I'm at 0 hit points, or I'm at negatives and I have been basically stabilized and woken up and I'm disabled. I'm in a condition where I can still act but pretty bad off. I can make move actions or standard actions. That's it. If I make a move, I can only move up to half my speed. If I make a standard at the end of the turn, I take a damage and I start dying again. Or if I wasn't dying before, I actually start dying. Now, this is not to say that during that standard action I could do something to heal myself and therefore not be dying. I could do that. Basically be like, oh, I cast a cure spell myself, and I'm like, ugh. You know, you took that damage from casting cure spell, but then it popped you back up as you were about to like bleed out. You're like, oh god, Healing magic finally got me going. Now, as long as you get a little bit of assistance, you can heal naturally in this state. After about an hour of being in this state, you will make a Constitution check at DC 10 with a penalty equal to the amount of negatives that you're in. If you succeed at this check, you begin to heal naturally, normally, at the normal healing rate you would have. If you fail, your body is just not doing great, you start dying again. This is assuming that you really don't have a lot of help at this point in time. A little more help can actually assist on these things and make it a little easier to overcome this and get to the natural healing. Magic would also help very easily too, but you might not always have that option. Next up is dying. It's just that. I'm passing away. I'm at negatives, bleeding out. So as soon as I've reached this dying condition, and I have not reached my negative and the negative hit points equal to my Constitution score, which is death, well, the subsequent turn, every turn after that, I make a Constitution check. The DC is 10. And this is exactly like it was when I was disabled. It has a penalty to this DC 10 Constitution check equal to my current negative hit points. If I make it, I stabilize. If I fail it, I bleed out one and get closer to death. Slowly but surely closer to death. And the closer to death it gets harder to stabilize, because the negatives you would have to your Constitution check get larger. Now, there is something you can always do. Roll a 20. Roll a 20 will automatically stabilize you. Bam! Now, energy drain, well, it's just that. You'll get negative levels. These can be temporary. These can become permanent, as I discussed. And it will be always important to note that if your negative levels, your energy drain, becomes equivalent to your hit dice / level, you die. But we say hit dice because this affects creatures too, and monsters, and, well, you also might be some kind of monster character with class levels. It can happen in games. It can happen. So you could have hit dice. That would also need to be lost. Now, the last one I want to talk about today is entangled, where vines or ropes or something else goes around you and tries to prevent you from moving. Now, unless whatever this is that's tying around you is anchored or tethered in some way, you can still move around. It's just restricting your ability to move with all these things wrapping up around you. Traditionally, you can move about half of your speed. You can't run or charge. You get -2 to attack, and your dexterity is considered -4 while you're entangled. Which means if you're using a dex-based combat, well, you're kind of doubly screwed because you get both the attack penalty and the dex penalty. And it is also important to note that if I try to cast a spell while entangled, I have to make a concentration check to do it successfully. These vines and ropes or whatever are interfering with my ability to cast the spell. My concentration check DC will be 15 plus the spell level. I either make it and I'm good to go, or I fail it and I lose the spell. That's it. Most ways of being entangled will list the way that you could possibly get out of it, whether strength or escape artist or whatever. Depends on the effect entangling you. But that's it for today. I went over some more conditions, things your characters can get. Of course, I went over the trifecta of dying, disabled, and dead, because that's an important 3 that we have to talk about. The 3 Ds of your character's probably going to hit that at some point in their adventure and career. The 3 Ds of, well, you hope that you don't hit the last one, dead. I also went over a number of minor and important conditions, from confusion to cowering to deafened to entangled, and a bunch in between. In the next episode, we're going to move away from these conditions and continue with the rest of the conditions with hope of finishing up the book finally. We'll see if we can do it in 1 or 2 episodes. But if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please just leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe at Church for the channel, the Empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon. Link in the description below. There's some great rewards there. Helps to grow and improve the channel and the Empire. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.